As with many other fellow awkward nerds out there, middle school was a pretty hard time for me. I was already a pretty emotionally unstable kid, but throwing hormones into the mix was a pretty rough situation. I got bullied pretty much every day and my grades were completely terrible, so I came home to even getting crap from my parents. I had like one friend, and after my older brother went to high school and I was in 8th grade without him, I felt utterly alone. Things would get worse before they got better, but with me during those roughest times and little old teen Wyatt's life was anime. I'm not kidding here. And probably as you know during the mid-2000s, cartoons were kind of at a stagnant point. Yes, liking anime was probably cause for getting beaten up and jeered at, but being able to come home from a miserable day and spend the afternoon poring over whatever crap ADV brought over that I bought with my meager allowance on weekdays made that time a little bit more tolerable. I won't lie, I was a little pretentious, so I began to turn my nose up at shows like Naruto or even my beloved Dragon Ball, moving towards more highbrow shows like Excel Saga or Cromartie High School, or whatever was on Adult Swim like FLCL or Wolf's Rain or Ava. One night at the height of my time in middle school, staying the night at one of my friend's house, he turned it to Sci-Fi Channel, and something very similar by very similar people was on. In that one brief moment in my miserable life where I was comfortable and open with the one person I could be with, this one chance encounter happened with a show by much of those same guys that did Fooly Cooly and Evangelion. It was called Gurren Lagann, and it changed my life forever. Engen Toppa Gurren Lagann, or Heaven-Shattering Gurren Lagann, is an anime by Studio Gainax, developed by mad god genius Hiroyuki Imaishi. You know, from the OKKO opening. A show in the super robot genre, a genre mainly popular during the 70s, and it's my favorite thing. I'm pretty sure I cannot love any single thing more than this show. It got me through the hardest parts of my life, and it's with me until the infinite future or when I die at the age of 65. While this is a retrospective, I don't want to Wikipedia at you so much, so to keep it brief, Imaishi was an animator that worked on, and thus animated, some of the best animation this side of your expensive OVAs in the 80s. He was a lifelong fan of the Ghetto Robo series, and if you've read any amount of that, it's shockingly clear. But he was also really fixated on this idea of using the drill as a key item. Not just as a weapon, but to create a story that followed the momentum of a drill or a spiral. Among the gods at Gainax, you got Kazuki Nakashima, who wrote sister series Kill La Kill, which I think is at least as good as Fooly Cooly. And he even wrote Kamen Rider Forze. Fuck dude, that's like one of the best ones. There's Atsushi Nichigori, who did a decent enough follow-up spiritually to Die Buster with Darling in the Franxx. Yo Yoshinari, god in flesh and creator of Little Witch Academia, an absolute banger of a show, as well as animating my favorite piece of anything animated ever, Parallel Works 8 in Gurren Lagann. All of these massive nerds and many more formed this ultimate punk rock group that would end up creating some truly legendary television. And in true punk rock form, they all left the slowly spiraling into dogshit Gainax in order to form their own studio, Studio Trigger, which among the 3 shows I mentioned, made Gurren Lagann's sister project Promare very recently, which everybody loved without even seeing it, because they wanted to fuck that twink guy really bad. The story of Gurren Lagann is perhaps its greatest achievement. Actually, all of it is its greatest achievement, but the storyline, or rather story spiral, is perfect. The story is a perfect PlayStation 1 era RPG hidden gem that makes you remember why you love stories to begin with, and how good these kind of things can even be. A young boy named Simon finds an ancient machine buried underground in his village. It allows him and his brother to reach the surface. With it, the humans on the surface, who have been crushed by the powers that be into living underground, can finally take the fight to them. This mecha, the Lagann, acts as a beacon of hope to the surface rebels, and they begin to collect around this literal figure head and defeat the beastmen and then their king, with a few important casualties along the way. 7 years later, once society has risen back to its former glory, they found out that the king was keeping the population low because an even worse higher species set a limiter on the moon, and if they get past a certain threshold, it will fucking smoke them, Majora's Mask style. This causes the team to eventually have to go to space and across into a parallel pocket dimension where reality is completely at the whim of the anti-spirals, who want to stop species from evolving due to it eventually leading to too much spiral power in the universe, causing a big crunch, and in true Getter Robo form, they manage to beat the anti-spirals with a final message to change the world.
My final message. Goodbye.
It's the true story of a boy's life from childhood to adulthood, trying to live life to the fullest and make sure that nobody ever has to suffer like he did. It's like Dragon Quest V, fused with a crazy-ass 70s robot show, and then a Samurai Jack-like stylish cartoon. If you're not sold on that alone, I hate you. Okay, I don't hate you. Please just keep watching. Actually, I want to get a little bit more granular here, so why don't we get into the nitty-gritty and talk about each of the show's major 4 arcs. First of all, this show is probably my favorite mecha design and general design philosophy of any show. I love the gunmen being these squat, fat, headless bodies with giant glowing circly eyes and teeth. Each one has so much personality, especially the ones the heroes end up stealing, like the twin Boken or the King Kitan. The series of course has its own Shiten-O, the 4 Beastmen generals, and they each not only have really awesome transforming mecha that suit them perfectly, but these incredibly stupid, gigantic fuck-off battleships with gigantic faces on them. My favorite being Daigunzan, the first one they encounter, and the one that they eventually convert into the Daiguren, as it's a walking battleship with an extremely phallic bow and arms that chuck the fucking grunt gunmen across the desert at Mach speed toward the humans to fight them. The character designs themselves are equally iconic and stylish. It's a perfect middle ground between the more anatomical designs of Ava and the more cartoonish insanity of, say, Panty and Stocking or Space Patrol Luluco. It's this awesome crossroads between Gainax and Trigger. Simon is such a perfect, pathetic little boy that starts out covered in dirt, fruitlessly digging holes for his village, crappy little burlap cloak, which he then sheds and then gets his really slick blue jacket. And when he's an adult, he starts off as a beleaguered, business casual guy, and then transforms into the ridiculous shonen hero type straight out of the Brave series or Ken Ishikawa manga. I'm still bitter Peridot from Steven Universe never got the star shades. We were all rooting for you, damn it. To address the elephant-sized breasts in the room, yeah, Yoko's outfit doesn't quite do it for me in the same way it did when I was 12. Joking aside, I was never particularly horny, and I'm still generally not into fan service at all. Ironically, considering I like Kill la Kill, and I at least don't hate Darling in the Franxx, though I don't really like it either. So, now as an adult, I kinda just roll my eyes along with the detractors at her skeevy sex pervert design. I think the show's greatest strength is how self-indulgent it can be, but even I can't really gel with it. She is at least a well-written character and has some good dramatic moments as it goes, as well as being a big part of one of my favorite standalone episodes in the series with episode 21. There's also the matter of Liran, who I think is a really cool and funny character. He is still definitely a horrible homophobic stereotype though. Sure, the predatory way he acts towards Kamina is just teasing because he knows it'll get under his skin. He doesn't take it seriously, but it doesn't make it any less of a bad stereotype. It's not helped by the kind of voice they give him in the English dub.
Means that love changes the universe.
Kamina is another huge point of praise, and I say this as perhaps the most and least qualified person, but I too love Kamina. But I am 100% sure that most people don't actually know why he's such a good character. Generally, maname types, the ones that are very into My Hero Academia or One Punch Man now, did in the past talk about how badass and cool and manly Kamina is. I think he works so well as a character because he is filled with confidence and bravado, but it's all undue or even kind of false. He gets to be incredibly sure about doing something incredibly stupid, and usually it backfires horrendously, but because he exudes this aura of confidence, you just kind of go along with it. Yeah, He's basically Eddie from Ed, Edd n Eddy, if Eddie then died a tragic death. To be a little clearer, in episode 11, post his death, Yoko relays a story to the team about how Kamina once admitted to having no idea what he was doing at all times. That the entire time, he was really just relying on the power of suggestion and hoping that Simon could pull them through this. See, Simon is a pretty sheepish kid that maybe a similarly sheepish, similarly aged kid would identify with. When Kamina says not to believe in himself, but to believe in Kamina that believes in Simon, it gives Kamina this almost angelic superhero quality to him. You watch the show and he's kind of a prick. He fucks up all the time, is homophobic and sexist, and generally not a perfect Athenian god man. The idea of him, and what he represents, in and out of fiction, is awesome though. Your big brother that will always believe in you, protect you from the bullies, never jeer at you or mock you, and always push you to be your best self. That's what all of Team Gurren saw in him, it's what all the fans, including myself, saw in him, and it's what a lot of people from outside come in to expect. Or fans that haven't revisited it in years and might be sorely disappointed because not only does the genuine article kinda suck as a person, but he's also dead in 8 episodes, and then Simon becomes the new beacon of hope to look up to and then aspire to be. Simon is the real deal. He can take the hoary old tropes of toxic masculinity and throw them out, becoming a true man, who drinks the respect women juice, and who exudes true confidence and bravado for the sake of helping everyone. When Simon promises to stop the moon, he means it and he does it. The action and animation is another huge drawing point to the series. Gainax may not have supreme clout like Sunrise or Ghibli, but they're all gigantic nerds and they're just trying to make something cool, and they usually succeed at it better than most other companies. Actually, for better or for worse, this show came out in 2007, and there has not been a single show since then that has nailed that consistent coolness of the action. And while things like Mob Psycho are like ungodly, incredible animation, once again, nothing quite gets that perfect mix of dynamic style, poses mixed with the experience, and the budget mixed with, you know, cool-ass robot shit. Some episodes early on are a bit hit or miss, but highlights like 15 or how the whole second half of the show are just outstanding in the visual department, on a cool and emotional level. Blistering peaks and moody as hell valleys. I said before that the series is separated pretty neatly into 4 major story arcs, about at the same length of 5 to 8 episodes each, and each brings its own unique mood to it. It sometimes feels like different shows, and the first 2 arcs are essentially a completely different show than the latter 2. Yes, this show contains its own sequel, and it's even better than the first. But let's start at the beginning. The first 8 episodes cover the humble beginnings of Simon and Kamina in a crappy underground village, all the way up to their first huge win against a Beastman general, and then commandeering his ship at the cost of Kamina's life. This arc is the most freewheeling and fun. You can tell they're kind of figuring it all out as they go, as tons of dialogue contradicts later story points, and the seeming lack of focus is indicative of not even seeing the first big bad until 9 episodes in. That being said, I love these episodes. The first 3 are an all-star set of pilot episodes with tons of subtle and more overt world building that's very easy to follow and instantly engaging in a very shonen manga or RPG-like way. Later mecha shows get kinda lost in the sauce of either trying to be weird and deep like Eva or overly realistic and way too lost in minutia like Gundam. Though, you know, I love Gundam. This one just kind of tells you what's up and you accept it because they're just so confident about it. My favorite episode of the bunch is probably 5, as its mood is so dreary and bleak. The grayscale colors fit it really well, and while it's a plot important episode in a literal sense, you can watch it stand alone and get a complete story. The premise of a village with a maximum capacity of 50 people is not only a compelling dystopian short story, but it sets up the hidden main conflict of the series before it's ever hinted at in the second half. Fighting to live in a world despite it having this limited resource or this limited amount of time left. 4 is probably the worst, but at least it's so weird it's funny. I tend to skip 6 as, once again, I'm not particularly into fan service. I will say though that the fake out gags involving Kamina trying to see boobs is pretty funny, as is the giant hot spring gunman, which just so turns out to be the final villain of the week as Viral shows up, one of the other main villains, and just railroads the whole show from that point on. The death of Kamina in episode 8 is as emotionally affecting as it has been made out by thousands before me. No hyperbole there. The whole episode is the first time we truly feel like we're at war, giving it that 8th MS team feel, and the emotional back and forth between Simon and Kamina is just perfect. I still cannot watch the whole sequence with the first Giga jailbreak and not tear up from the bittersweetness of everything. That's not saying much, as I like to cry a lot in general, and the show makes me cry all the time, and we'll get into that later. The second chunk, up to the fight with the Spiral King, is probably the most uneven in quality and tone, starting out really depressing, but then there's a beach episode, then on to the conclusion. The beach episode has a bunch of adult men lusting after a 14-year-old girl, Nia, for being cute. Great! Oh yeah, Nia. Let's talk about her, because she's an excellent character as well. After the critical loss of Kamina and Simon's spiral into depression, eventually he finds a mysterious girl in a box, similar to Outlaw Star. And then we find out that she's an abandoned daughter of the Spiral King, Lord Genome, the honkin', badass, bearded, shirtless, might makes right, Disc 1 final boss hog. She acts as not only a weirdo, sheltered character, but a nice outside perspective for Simon. She sees firsthand how selfless and brave he is all on his own, when he himself and everyone else on the team thinks of him as just a lesser version of Kamina, or rather, that he's nothing without him. Of course, Kamina tried to tell him that he was great on his own before his death, but grief can really mess you up like this, make you lose perspective. What Nia offers is not only a good setup to the plot of defeating the Spiral King, by giving us a direct link to him, and someone that was wronged by him, but Nia acts as a beam of light amidst tragedy, and someone who can see the real kindness buried in dirt and sadness inside Simon at his darkest. If you can't love him at his episode 9, you don't deserve him at his episode 27. Her uncharacteristic cuteness and beauty, coming straight from a shoujo manga rather than the 70s shonen stuff that the series usually trades on, adds another layer of otherworldliness to her, making her seem like an actual angel to fill the void of Kamina. In the spirit of the show, though, she is very much human, naively thinking she can reason with the Beastmen or her father, and also being kinda stupid and slow on the uptake due to being sheltered her whole life. Simon quickly falls in love with her, as she's the only person to give him the time of day, and Nia right back for him. For he's such an honest, selfless person that may not be the best, but he tries his hardest at all times. God, I'm biting my lip writing this because it's so sweet and I know how it all ends. The battles with the remaining Beastmen General are also all great, even if Adine is killed in the beach episode of all things. I like Guam's battleship, because it's just a giant dome, and I now recognize it as a reference to the Mysterians. Go listen to Discuss All Monsters right now. This is cheating, but my favorite episode of the bunch is 15, with the storming the capital city / Mecha Teplin, or the Dekabutsu if you're spicy, and the confrontation with Lord Genome. This episode is just ridiculously good looking compared to the stuff beforehand, like movie quality, and the fight at the end is very brief, but so well staged that every moment of it is intense and memorable. It really feels like being thrown into the deep end and just struggling to get out alive, let alone get to safety. The way it ends is classic shonen too. Once the villain is sure that he won, the hero pulls out one last push of power and boom! Essentially, the show as we know it is finished after this, and the remaining 11 episodes are, like I said, the sequel. It even comes packed in with a new threat, the Mugan. What are the Mugan? Well, after the 1,000,000th person is born, these weird, creepy CGI Tetris blocks start appearing and fucking up everything. Then we learn that Nia, of all people, was chosen to be an agent to a race of higher beings known simply as the Anti-Spiral race. Also, like I said before, the moon is gonna kill everyone, so yeah, not a good time. This is probably my favorite part in a snooty, intellectual sense. While the previous arc had a huge downer element, even if it was still a theatrical, if semi-realistic kind of melodrama, with the Shakespearean reign after the death of a hero, and the hero losing his way only to get it back after hardening his resolve. Here, Simon is firmly in that position as a beacon of light and somebody that won't give up and won't let anyone else give up. But reality is even more against him. The entire world hates him, blaming all of this on him, even resenting the fact that they ever left the underground. Rusyu, a minor side character from the first half, but now a huge focus in this part, is forced to make many hard executive decisions to save face and give people peace of mind. Simon is set to get executed for his crimes for fighting the Mugan, who are extremely explosive, and then they destroy part of the city. Holy God. It's one of the most meticulous self-deconstructions of not only the series itself, but the seat of your pants philosophy of shonen media in general. Far more than before, it feels utterly hopeless. The other members of Team Daiguren can barely keep up appearances either, and Kitan becomes a lot more of a focus too, being the only one to put complete trust in and believe in Simon, saving them all. Despite his bride-to-be becoming a harbinger of doom, despite the Anti-Spiral's sadistic tactics to crush any fleeting victory with despair, despite him getting sent to jail and then sentenced to execution by his closest friend, Simon still smiles and promises everything is going to work out. And in that overwhelming darkness, you want to believe him, right? No matter how hard the series tries to prove him wrong, he still won't give up. He can't give up. And when things hit their nadir, there it is again, to signal the power of humanity and the hope for the life of the future. Gurren Lagann, with a swanky new form too. One literally made from the arc that Rusyu used to try to save humanity. All of humanity is fighting back right now. Anyway, to backtrack, I think I made it clear why this arc really sticks in my craw the most, but I want to talk about some smaller moments that I feel elevated. Episode 21 is a big fave of mine, as it's about Yoko and what she's been doing during the time skip, but actually it's a self-contained story about the kids at the school she's teaching and how their life as kids who have never had to deal with beastmen and how they're affected by all this doomsday talk. Considering the current events at the time of this show and now, it's really interesting when writers take the time to show how the problems of our generation will adversely affect the next. On a more baseline note though, this episode is just really cute and fun, a good diversion after the soul-crushing previous 4 episodes. It gives Yoko a lot more character, and there's a very chill Peanuts kind of vibe to the misadventures that these really young school kids get into, that's just completely different from the rest of the series. The Mugan are suitably alien and bizarre, being named as such for their lack of faces. The next arc will introduce even more bizarre foes with the Anti-Spiral's weird hand and feet ships, which were actually designed by Hirohiko Araki himself, which is just bonkers. They look awesomely creepy, by the way. My favorite bad guys in the series by far, so come on anime studios, get Araki to design more mecha. It's been 13 years! Gurren Lagann is a series with great episodes or plot points or thematic stuff for sure, but more importantly, it's a show with really great moments. Something will happen during a fight that will make your goddamn eyes pop out of your head at least once an episode. Actually, an easy way for me to compartmentalize which episode is which at a thought is that I think of the biggest, most iconic moments that happen. The first scene where they bust out of the ground at twilight and see the sun and the moon in the sky, Kamina punching Simon to get him to focus, Simon breaking out of his depression and defeating Guam for the first time, the fucking Giga Drill Maximum, perhaps the greatest moment up until this point and honestly the most indicative of how far the series has come and where we'll go for the final stretch. After Simon and previous rival Viral formed the Arc Gurren Lagann in space while fighting off the Mugan, they fucking uppercut the biggest one through space and time and literally shatter the heavens. This show kinda changed my life in so many ways. It gave me a hero that was really just like me, not cool or confident, but had the potential to become as much. He was a meek little weenie that felt powerful or comfortable when he was around the people that he loved, or when he was in the zone. It showed me that kind of kid could do great things. The first year of high school, a family member of mine passed away, and I just became even more angry and depressed than I was in middle school. I thought I had gotten through the worst years of my life and finally grew up, but life just kept happening to me, just like Simon, whose brother died right when he finally overcame his anxiety. Someone was there for him though, told him that it was only natural to feel that way. It wasn't stepping back. Trying to push through the grief will just make you angrier and feel even worse. Life will move on, and new people will enter your life and help you seal the wounds. Simon and I grew to be more confident, happy people, content with life. Seeing this show, and from first-hand experiences, the sadness of life is fleeting. Despite all this though, at the end of the third arc, where Simon is at his most aspirational and human, seeing him break down in grief at finally confronting the woman he loves, seeing for himself that she's still in there, and then getting that taken away is the perfect final piece of the puzzle to young Wyatt. That grief may be fleeting, but when it happens, you aren't any weaker to be sad about it. There's no reason to posture.
Digging tunnels. Day after day, that's my job.
Ew, look, it's Simo the digger. We're not careful. He might drill a hole in us, too.
This looks pretty good on you, kid. Drills are your soul. You got it? Up on the surface, there's no walls, no ceiling. Instead, all you see around you is a bright blue sky. One of these days, you and me need to try to go to the moon. Kick logic out and do the impossible. That's the way we roll. I give you my word that if you ever start to doubt yourself, I'll come and belt you one. So don't worry, I'm right by your side. Just believe in yourself. Later, buddy.
Quick question for you, Rosie. Why didn't that god of yours save Bro's life?
My name is Nia. What are you called?
Me? My name is Simon.
I do not understand. You have no tail, no claws, no feathers.
Honestly, I was just acting tough. I guess I was finally at the end of my rope. But Simon, he kept on drilling away.
My name is Simon, leader of Team Daiguren, Simon the Digger. If you decide that you're going to be a wall that's standing in my way, then I have something that will open a hole in you every time. And that something is my drill! Get married, Nia.
We hereby activate the humanity extermination system.
Is that Nia? You're wrong. Maybe you don't realize it yourself. But when you appeared to me that time, you wanted me to help you.
So will you come to get me, Simon?
Yeah. Who the hell do you think I am?
So this is the power of the spiral. Not bad at all.
You would sacrifice one of your own in order to go forward? Such is the karma of the people of the spiral. Watch where this universe is headed. See the universe destroyed by the power of the spiral, which thinks only of evolving. This is the spiral nemesis.
This fact is known to those who are users of the spiral power. However, there is one other truth, and that is that Nia is out there waiting for you.
What foolishness! You would risk the universe for the sake of a fleeting emotion.
You're wrong, dumbass! I'll protect them! The girl! The universe! Both of them! I don't want to regret doing nothing because of a tomorrow that might never come. That's the way Team Daiguren rolls!
Get going, Simon. Just don't be distracted by the what-ifs, should-haves, and if-onlys. The one thing you choose yourself, that is the truth of your universe.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly right.
Hey, when the hell did you get taller than me?
Wow, you're right.
Your actions are baffling already. Why do you resist us so? There is nothing special or unique about you.
You will never understand.
We have no need to understand. We only need to know.
Then you may as well give up, because you'll never be able to defeat them. He will come. You can be sure of that.
Just who the hell do you think we are?
Such arrogance from a lowly species that is kept suppressed by us. We will make you regret your insolence! Burn in the everlasting hellfire of creation! Be utterly annihilated! Down to the very last scrap of DNA!
Eat this!
Never! How can this be? Where are you drawing all of this power from?
We evolve beyond the person we were a minute before. Little by little, we advance a bit further with each turn. That's how a drill works. The dreams of those who have fallen, the hopes of those who will follow. Those two sets of dreams weave together into a double helix, drilling a path towards tomorrow. And that's Tengen Toppa. That's Gurren Lagann. My drill is the drill that creates the heavens!
If this is how it must be, protect the universe at all costs.
Of course we will. Humanity isn't that stupid.
The final arc is probably what most people think of when the show is brought up, either to fans or onlookers. It's when everything goes completely apeshit into balls-out space warfare, like Captain Harlock fused with Getter Robo on meth. There's a reason why games like Zero Ranger exist, with heavy homage to Gurren Lagann, and that's because this final part is both so iconic and totally and very easily dovetails into becoming a cool-ass space shooter game like Gradius or R-Type. Look at this shit. Space Gunman? A fucking transforming ship the size of the moon? It's so big they have to use teleportation to move around in it. And they only just discovered teleportation so that Simon could punch Rassiu. It's only the last few episodes, but it's fucking awesome. The show gets to this ridiculous scale, where by the final episode, they're fighting inside of robots the size of galaxies, in a super-dimensional space, literally throwing other galaxies as shuriken at each other, but it feels natural somehow. You start with a boy digging holes and then get to this and it's natural? Explain! The whole central idea of the show being based around a drill or a spiral is vague enough that you can apply it to pretty much anything. And this kind of dumb, stoner-level fake deepness works really well in explaining to the audience how the fuck we get from point A to point infinity. Boy finds robot, robot fuses with bigger robot, robot steals battleship, battleship fights Tower of Babel, moon is sent to destroy planet, moon is used to warp to alternate universe and fight planet-sized monsters, unstoppable force meets immovable object, and the villain, the anti-spiral, who has complete dominion over reality in which they fight him, escalates it to a galactic level. The anti-spiral is a really interesting villain, as their existence finally puts into full context what the hell has been going on, and why, in a way that makes total sense. And they only actually appear in the final 2 episodes. They're a force that truly believe the universe is better off if no evolution or true life happens, because the alternative is rapid destruction of everything and everyone. Spiral power, the vague energy that could have easily just been justified as Toon Force or shonen nonsense, is given a name and given a genuine danger to using it. It's the power of creation, creating matter from nothing. So if it's abused, the universe will suffer an early death. The problem being that what's the point of protecting a universe where nothing can happen? The heroes fight because they know that life is worth living and that moving forward is the only path to any joy, even if it means the eventual death of everything. Every problem in the series arose because a person gave up too easily in the face of a threat. They didn't want to move forward because they didn't see a path forward, which is literally Kamina's story to Yoko before his death about Simon saving them from impending death during a cave-in, with his ability to just see things as they are, not panic, and just keep drilling. That's what it's actually all about. We believe in the hero's path the same way that Kamina did. Remember the most famous line in the series? The one you probably think just sounds cool but doesn't make any sense? Well, guess what, nerd? It's the whole point of the series. We believe in Simon because we believe in everyone else who believes in him. He can always see the path forward no matter how hard the situation is. Now here we have the ultimate version of this with the anti-spiral, a being so assured that they are doing what is necessary that they don't even realize that all this time, eons spent subjugating the universe, could have been spent living and not running away. While only being 5 episodes, the final arc offers some pretty big emotional gut punches, beginning with the fallout of the moon situation, leading Rossio to become so racked with grief over his horrible actions he attempts to kill himself, only for Simon, the guy who he tried to execute and blame everything on, to confront him and tell him in no uncertain terms that he never thought that Rossio was bad for doing what he did. He had the literal weight of the world on his shoulders, and anyone would crack under that. But after some words of encouragement, well, words of encouragement after a space-time teleport punch, and feeling the weight of just one human life on his lap, he has a moment of clarity and resolves to stay and heal the wounds of the world as the main team goes off to the fuck dimension to fight with a super god. The most important episode to me, and one that brings me to tears every time, but for no emotional reason weirdly enough, is episode 25. After nearly all the pilots of Team Gurren die in a futile fight against the creepy-ass anti-spiral ships, and they're forced into super high gravity space ocean, rising star of the second half of the show, Kitan, sacrifices his life to free everyone in a moment that, okay, it's exactly the scene in Getter-Robo when Musashi sacrifices himself. It's not remotely subtle, and I fucking love that. Kitan started out as a pretty underdeveloped character, but was given a lot of depth here in the second half. None of the other Team Gurren guys get any meaningful character arcs beyond being old school anime cool guys, but Kitan acts as kind of a figurehead for all of them. Someone that represents the past when the world has changed so much and so rapidly in the 7-year time skip. We see how ill-equipped these kinds of brutish badass guys are in anything but fighting or being badass directly through him, and thus he begins to grow beyond it in his own ways. With him dying though, the last of the old guard is gone, with Simon and the teenaged Gimme and Dari left, the next generation. I don't know why, but while this part is incredibly satisfying, since there's nothing really tragic about it in a sense, it's purely just cool to see Kitan reverse the effects of the space ocean and convert it all into infinite spiral energy. And then, the moment that made me who I am today, with no hyperbole. This was the first episode I saw that night on the Sci-Fi Channel when this happened. I seriously wouldn't be the same. No matter how many times I watch that, it gives me goosebumps. Not only is the Super Galaxy Gurren Lagann itself so fucking cool, but God, seeing this massive godlike being stand small against the anti-spiral ships is both shocking and fills me with an intense amount of hope that I can't begin to explain. If the Super Galaxy is the size of the moon, these things are larger than the Earth itself, and Simon still exudes such confidence, and well, fuck, he follows up on it because he annihilates these guys in the next episode. 26 is one half Simon wrecking the anti-spirals, and one half being trapped in the Matrix. I actually don't have a lot to say here beyond, you know, fuck me, this fight is so cool, and that it's such a good idea that it's Kamina inside of Simon's mind that breaks him free. He represents this ultimate freedom, so it only makes sense, beyond the fact that he obviously affected everybody's life in such a strong way. As cheesy as it is, the final goodbye between them is so simple, yet so heavy and evocative. It's perfect. The finale is something that I truly think is a lost art for a lot of shows or stories. You'd think that if you loved something, you'd have absolutely no worry about if it would end in a good or satisfying place. But weirdly, that's an extremely rare thing for a lot of people. Or rather, it's rare to get one that's this good in so many ways. The ending of Gurren Lagann, in no uncertain terms, is perfect for this series. Not even the movie meaningfully improves on it, as awesome as it is, and in fact in ways it's weaker. Look, it's rad, but did we really need a 5-minute scene of all the Team Daiguren guys who are alive now, fighting with their galaxy-sized mecha? I think these frankly flat characters are better served with the endings in the series, for the reasons that I stated earlier. The series proper, though, every beat is perfect. Nia's rejection of the anti-spiral, the heroes showing up to save her, the formation of the final form of their mecha, the fierce clash with the anti-spiral's own dark version of it, the anti-spiral slowly losing composure and logic, devolving back to the emotionally fueled life form that he once was, his defeat and his plea to the heroes in his dying breath to protect the universe, the wedding and the resultant death of Nia, and the epilogue, with Simon becoming a wandering storyteller. I could go deeper at this point, but it'd be a bit much even for me. No need to fully dissect something that I consider perfection. I talk about crying a lot, and this series brings out many instances of manly tears, but here I can't help but full-blown One Piece style ugly cry. I'm born and raised as a Trek nerd. I love sci-fi, I love space and space travel. I love looking up to the stars and imagining a future where people live among them. Even as a miserable teen, it was the one thing that unilaterally gave me joy and hope. It was that future in that specific way. That once we moved to the stars, all the problems on Earth would seem so small. People want to help each other, and I think that space is the one thing that can unite all of humanity, like it did here. So that being said, the final line never ceases to utterly make me break down. All the lights in the sky are stars. The ceiling of the village is broken. The heavens are broken, as the name of the series suggested. True freedom for everyone everywhere is there to grasp, and those stars are the worlds where our spiral cousins are waiting for us. And it's that one robot that made it all possible, going to meet them, with the next generation in tow. Like I said, high school also kinda sucked, but I realized people were there to help me through it. Things like Gurren Lagann or playing the Mother series helped keep me positive and full of optimism. Gurren Lagann is something that's always there for me. Finishing high school and just being a burnout that never went to college and spent every week at my friend's house playing D&D, I watched it again and talked about it endlessly with those guys. I still do to this day. I started writing my own fiction and stories, and every time I need a boost of inspiration and something to show me why I'm doing it, I think of Gurren Lagann. I watch an episode or a moment from it to keep me going. When I started drawing seriously for the first time last year, because I wanted to become an actual artist, whenever it felt too hard to continue or to ever improve, I go back to that story. Whenever life rears its ugly head, if I'm unemployed, or stuck at a shitty Walmart job, or stuck in some kind of worldwide quarantine, when the path forward is hard, I try to stay calm and just keep drilling. And Gurren Lagann is why. It's not something that just affected me deeply. Its reach is so staggering that it's hard to convey in words. Games, cartoons, movies, anime, everything. People saw the golden heart of this series and wanted to show the world their love for it, or make something that does the same for others that it did for them. Nothing has ever reached its level for me, and I think that's okay. Sometimes it's healthy to admit that you'll never find another favorite and just appreciate everything else as being itself. Gurren Lagann is the sum total of my favorite things about shonen storytelling, my favorite things about video games and animation, the joy of creating something you truly love, my favorite parts of humanity all wrapped into one. There will only ever be one Gurren Lagann, but anything can become your Gurren Lagann. And if I haven't convinced you why this is the greatest show of all time, I hope I told you why the thing that you love is the greatest show of all time. And I hope you're able to tell other people why.